something about that?
Mm-hmm.
Are they good at making friends in the international environment or back in the local environment? I mean, one of the challenges is that people who made friends all their lives, like for me, I never had a problem with friends. All of a sudden, when I came back to the States, I felt like everybody thought I was really weird and strange. And I made friends eventually, but in that first coming back, you know, how you make friends can be different. Where in the international environment, everybody's moving. So you're kind of used to letting the new person in. But sometimes when kids go back to a place where everybody else was there from the beginning, it's harder to make friends. But that would be interesting to know, have they learned how to make friends locally? Because I mean, that's a skill set. That's great. You can translate that. But
it was not really asked in this question, because the people who participated in the survey, they are in different stages. So I assume that most of them are still abroad and see that their children flourish to make friends in international schools. It would be very interesting, for example, maybe we can do something on re-entry, or a smaller survey on re-entry, like how it worked out when they finally came back to their home country. I don't have a specific answer to this because we didn't ask it specifically in this survey.
But maybe Anne can share some of her experiences with her children, because this was non-COVID times. So maybe there's how was it for your children?
I have to unmute myself. Yeah, when we came back from China, my children were 10 and 8 years old, and I can resonate with a lot of things that Rebecca already mentioned. This complaining on a very high level was something we heard very often, and but especially with friendship, I think the biggest point was that wrong or false expectations, that we try to keep our friendships also with the children from a very young age, and we visited every year once or twice our home country, and we kept connected, but still they developed in different directions and didn't really recognize it during summertime. So when we came back, they thought they will have friends, and they have their own friends and old friends, but after a few months, they recognized that there are no really connections anymore, and they are both struggle with making new friends, German friends, in every not international environment. So this is something still that keeps us busy. Friends is a big topic.
Yes, and we definitely want to think about concepts, how to help the children through re-entry. You know, especially now during COVID, we were thinking, let's connect them. We have a Facebook group, the Weltfrauen, the World Women, and they all said, let's get a group for the world children so they can connect and help each other out through re-entry, because they have no one to talk to about this experience. But yeah, it's not so easy to make that happen because of child protection laws. So as the institute, we will be thinking about concepts, how to help them. If you have any ideas, Ruth, we'll be grateful.
Well, no, I think that it's a good idea of somehow doing some group stuff if you can. Of course, the kids always think they don't need anything, and so sometimes you have to get around. When I do international schools, or when I used to, I found the kids didn't want me to tell them what their issues were. I would make a panel, I would ask them, so what's the hardest part? I mean, they always said the same thing, you know, basically, but well, I get to see the world, and I mean, what's the best thing, and all these things. And what's the hardest thing is the same kind of things you've had. But I think when they hear each other, it validates it. Instead of you coming in, I've seen people doing, you know, as I used to do, coming in and saying this and this and this, and they go, no. But if they say it each other, then they also can develop parts that you didn't even know. So if you can get some group things, but then, you know, they can also, you can have discussions. So how do you reach out? I think what a lot of us who grew up this way didn't understand was the different way we see the world because of our experiences. And so this makes it hard. Two people who have the same passport can see life very differently. Even, I don't know exactly how it is now in Germany, but putting together the East and West Germany, where the way people see the world was pretty different, even if it wasn't cross-cultural. And I was in, I guess, Leipzig.
Leipzig.
And
Yeah.
I would say it, Leipzig.
Leipzig.
Okay, sorry. Told you I'm not very German. And I got off the train and something had happened. I thought I had, oh, you know, the schedule. Basically, I went from the train to some classroom without, usually I like to have a day in between and find out who's this school. So I asked my usual questions, you know, where are you from? And almost all the kids were white. And in an international school, there's usually much more of a mix. And they were all from there, or they were all, I mean, these kids, you know, what's your passport? And I thought, man, this is different. But it turned out that the local, but I learned something. I said, so I've also learned to say what's different when you go home at night than at school, because that's how you find out, you know, whatever. And what are your friends? Anyway, one of them said, well, I never tell my friends that I come here. And I thought, that's strange. So what I found out there was that because I guess that had been East Germany, the local council wanted more kids to learn English. So they paid scholarships for local kids to go to the international school so that they could improve their English and so forth. So these local kids who were coming were in this incredible cross-cultural experience. So they didn't even tell their friends at home that they went there because they think they were rich. But it made a completely different sort of, you know, I wasn't getting the answers I always get. I thought, what happened? And then I found out what happened is it was a completely different reason the kids were in the school. So I don't know how that came. Oh, but also that then the friendships and things like that, you know, are impacted. So I don't know, but I think talking about different ways people make friends, I think a lot of TCKs think people don't care about their story, but people aren't used to asking the story. In the international community, we always ask the story because we don't know each other. But, you know, when people have lived together all their lives, they don't have to ask each other the story. So they're kind of not used to it. So my daughter found she was offending people by being too open or inquisitive. And they thought she was being rude. And I said, no, they don't mind. And she told me later, she said, Mom, they minded. I said, sorry. I guess I don't know either. But that would be a good thing, is how do you help kids? First, what are the ways German kids usually relate? And okay, so I have actually a German friend that I just talked to this morning. She's a good friend of mine. She lives near Munich, and her kids grew up in one of the Eastern countries. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter at the moment. But the point is, when they came back, because they've been in an international school, their English was very fluent. And they also had an American accent. So this was a put down in the school. People thought they were snobby. And the teacher who taught English thought they were arrogant towards her or something, because I don't know. Anyway, for some reason, their English skills made them be seen as a certain way. So they kind of had to pretend they didn't know it. And that's been, I think, you know, in different countries, that can be part of it. I don't know.
You don't want to tell your kids, you know, don't tell anybody about your background. Don't tell anybody about the world that you lived in. You can't, you know, you want your kids to be authentic and to be proud of it.
I think what it is a matter of, yes, you do want them, you know, so how do you tell? How do you say it without, I had one TCK I met at a reentry seminar, and she was from Alaska. She had 5 albums of snow from my perspective. She kept showing me, and I said to her, you know, I didn't want to say all the snow looks alike to me. And I happen to be interested in your story. But I said, you know, you might want to pick a few of these pictures to explain your story to people instead of all of these pictures, because for those of us who don't know a different snow mountain from a different snow mountain, or this igloo from that one, or whatever you call it, we don't know how, we don't have context for your story. So I think that's part of it. The other thing I try and tell kids is, you know, ask them their story, because they also have a story, unless you're not allowed to ask questions. But, you know, but that's a thing for you guys to work on. How do you teach kids how to make that bridge in Germany? Because it'd be different than in Liberia. In Liberia, there would be much more openness. Everybody invites the stranger in. And in Germany, people don't, I think.
No, actually, we struggled a lot, and we just moved within Germany to a new place. And the children all knew each other since kindergarten, and the parents invited the children over, and you know, it's made by the parents, you know, fostered by the parents. So when you get there and during school age, you're too late. Everyone's taken.
Yes.
So you have to stick around with the new ones, the other new ones. As you said, you took the outsider.
Yeah.
And that's okay if it's another new one, but Dave Pollock would always tell the parents, be careful why you want a good mentor, because sometimes the outsider is because they're a troublesome kid. You know, they don't fit in because they're the troublemaker. And so they're looking for a new friend. And your kid might wind up being seen as a troublemaker if they wind up associating there. So